with back. We've got more cap head like screws are all off. I don't know where we got to last time. We took off, that's it, we took off this big lump of harmonic balancer. What have you missed? So, recap, I don't know where the videos will start and end. What we're trying to do, we established that's all good. We drained all the oil out the bottom, and then we drained all the oil out the top as well. And that's to get everything nicely lubricated, obviously. Not because more oil came out even when I drained it. Anyway, we now need to have a look at the bottom end, and that's going to be our whether we've got to spend thousands on an engine rebuild or not. Now, again, I might have already just said this, but maybe I'll start a new video here and then this will make sense. Yeah, why not? Check the bottom end, take the sump off. Take the sump off, I need to take the timing cover off to undo the pulley, or the sprocket even, for the oil scavenge pump. These are really actually quite easy to take off. There's some bits of casing which stick out. So you can just tap slowly against that. I don't want to use that because it's made of metal. Let's get plastic thing. So the plus side of the little bits of casing that stick out, like that one, is that you're not tapping on the ceiling face. So this is difficult, but if you do it slowly, it's not really a problem. Because what you've got to remember is we're pulling it over ceiling faces like that. Right, if you just work it around evenly, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Obviously things like this don't want to come off on the wonk. There we go. Easy as that. Right, so what do we have? So first of all, again, beautifully clean. There's a bit of slightly thicker gunk at the front. That's the first sort of area that was just, obviously it's not a recent rebuild, but I'm guessing, yeah, the very bottom of that oil probably never drains. I didn't do a brilliant job with the sealant because a lot of it is in the engine. Ignore timing chain tension at this point because you've got two manual tensioners on here. So that one and that one, and they locate onto this and this. So you've got to remember that's there, you don't want that to fall out. Always take a picture of what you're doing, even if you think you're going to put it back together in about 10 minutes, because you won't. Right, I always find it a little bit, I mean, there's no play in that really. I always find it difficult to work out how much sort of wear is on these teeth. It's difficult without seeing a new one. But anyway, where were we? So what you're looking for in timing chains. Now with the cover off, there's no point in looking at tension, as I said, because we've removed the manual tensioners. So there's going to be slack in a couple of places. But we're looking at the condition of the teeth, and they all look, they're quite sharp, but then I don't know what they look like new. So So, maybe we'll get some pictures, see what people think. Obviously, as the chain wears into the sprocket, same as your mountain bike or your motorbike, is that they get sharper and more grooved out. I don't think they look bad. Anyway, now where were we? So what we've got to do is just remove this. Oh, because that's built into the bottom of the sump, and it's the sump we want to take off. Now the scavenge pump isn't timed, is it? Now I'm sure that's a push fit on there. Just try. There we go. So you see that's just keyed onto the shaft. There we go. Let that hang down there, we will pop. That's there. See, it's amazing sometimes. If you apply nice even force, you don't need that much force. Right. Ooh, excuse me, camera. See, what else I find this problem of using engine stands is that there's no way an engine stand can actually go that isn't in the bloody way somewhere. Get a torch. Tell you what. Won't bore you, or bore me editing. I'll figure this bit out and we'll come back. It was fine, why didn't you say so? I don't know. Done. We're getting to that moment now, which you've all been waiting for, I'm sure. Before I pull this, first thing, if this is all full of sludge, that's not good. Because it's probably all down there now. But, well, I don't see... Oh my god! How is that even possible? So, that is a windage tray, which looks pretty clean. There's a bit of rust on it, but nothing. I mean, nothing's gonna make me cry anyway. Oh. Right. Problem is, I've thought, how am I going to turn it over? I probably need to put the timing cover back on, redo the tension. Yeah. Again, you can turn this one apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Goodbye. Okay, well, as I'm at the present, let's inspect a couple of main bearings, shall we? Yeah? Do you want to do it? I think I'll start here. Where's that clean pot? Don't drop it inside the engine. Well, you can see a little bit of wear, but no scoring. It's very minimal. If out, it's oily, which is obviously good. And the crank looks brand new on that one. Hang on, have a look. So what we're looking for? Well, a lot more wear than that. White metal's still there, we're not through to any brass. I'm going to take some pictures as I go. Number 5. Where's my little... I'll put some gloves on in a minute as well. Oh, right, let's put some gloves on. That was much too exciting to wait, obviously. And while we're doing this, let's talk about the realities of it, okay? Because many people are going, while it's out, just rebuild it. But I think I've said before, that's not, I don't work like that. If something doesn't need doing, it doesn't need doing. And you're not clever, because you spent thousands of pounds on doing something it didn't need doing. Not very. Easy, tiger. It definitely feels more than 50 foot-pounds. So yes, I could strip it all the way and send it off for rebuild, but I'll do that if it needs it. How's that? Right, we buttoned it back up. Fairly triumphant day. I'll flash some pictures up. The crank's not damaged. Nothing's really damaged. I think it's an engine that's been sitting for a while, because it looks like the white metal surface, especially on the conrod bearings, little ends, eaten away. I don't know, it's sort of blotchy. They look worse. I think essentially, I think everything's standard. The main bearings are Rover V8 anyway. So I think bearing roll. I think I'd get away with it. I don't think there's really a problem with the main bearings, but the conrod bearings definitely look worse. I'll flash some pictures up. I put the little camera down there as well. Balls look brilliant. It's still see cross hatching, same as I could when I went down the spark plug holes. So I'm really pleased with that. So ultimately, whilst we can't chuck the engine straight in, we're going to have to change bearings. think we're good. You know, we're good for, well, however long anyway. There's nothing immediately wrong, should I say. It might have no compression, but I can't see any reason why it would have no compression. So I think probably, I might get a bit more advice, but probably bearings. Well, there we go, on to something else. So on to a big end or con rod bearing. These take a 10mm splined. These are a bit simpler because you're changing these as if you were changing them off the car. Really. And it's a very spacious engine block. Okay, right, here's our little. They've got little dowel pins that go down each other, so we're just trying to free those off. Like that. There we go.
There's a hole in your gloves.
I'll be killed! So these have the same little notches as the crank main bearings. Is that focusing?
Mm.
Yeah.
You can go closer.
So, same again, that locates into there. And they're the little dowels that basically keep them all located. Oh, so I'll pop that. I'll come a bit closer. Now what we're going to do is push the piston down, which is why always do it when your piston is at sort of bottom dead centre. And we can just push that over, and then you have access to the bearing. And then I just want to give that a tap. So we're just going on the mating face of the bearing so we don't damage anything. Just to start it moving. There we go. All looks good. And similar again, so we've just gone through the sort of aluminized white metal surface, but no scratching, nothing. So get your new bearing. On these, unlike the main bearings, the shells are basically the same. There's no oil groove. So on the others, there's an oil groove. On the, as we're looking at it, the lower bearing, but the upper bearing. So, clean, like the others. You can use assembly lube, you can just use oil, but depending on how long it's going to sit before it runs, that oil might run out. So, I mean, you can get this from a wholesaler, but it's very gloopy, which just means there's less chance of it running out before we do a start. Hello, voiceover Peter again. Quick note, I do lube the back of the bearings in this, the main bearings and the con rod bearings. That is just to help them as they push down into the block and the con rod itself. So not too much, but just a little bit to stop any scoring. Contentious point from what I've read, but the other two engines I've done have survived. So there we go. It's fantastically messy as well. You can never use too much. So I'm going to drop that into the bearing. Sorry, this is very hard to film, I imagine. There we go. So if you sort of get your hand underneath the crank, you can hold one side of the piston up while you try and get it on. And there we go. There's enough friction on the piston so it won't just drop back down of its own accord. So this has got nothing to do with the Honda.
Bad joke.
Hmm?
Bad joke.
Yeah. Just give you all a anxiety attack by sitting that on the side of the engine. And then all we're doing again, same thing, brake clean, clean everything up that you're putting in with a clean lint-free cloth.
That's not clean.
That's just stuff, that's just dirt out the engine. It's going back to where it came from.
Yeah, but you said clean cloth. That's not clean cloth.
Oh, it is clean. So everyone's a critic, aren't they? You're not even in the comments screaming, why don't you just take the stupid crank out, because it won't take you very long.
What?
So, there we are. I'll keep saying it, but yeah, there's that little tang located into the cap. Everything on this is going to go one way. You can see the dowels. That's all nicely lubricated. And that is fairly straight. Right. Bolts, bolts, bolts. For engine crane. So either change your gloves a lot or just try and keep them clean.
Even with holes in them.
My hands are clean.
I'm not saying your hands aren't. I'm just saying you said keep your gloves clean and you have holes in them.
My skin will not damage the engine. I should really be using a gun for this, shouldn't I? There we go, look at that. So, normal stuff, things like this. Snug up your bolts first, then torque them up. And these are 40 pounds-feet. Okay. Alright camera, stay where you are. And then, as we're doing every single time we've done one, we're turning the engine over. If you leave it till the end, and you've got something wrong that's locking up the crank, you're not going to have any idea which one it was. Attempt number 2 at filming a bearing roll. So I didn't just say, a bearing roll in itself, I may have already said this in another piece of the video, but I have no idea how I'm going to cut all this together really. When we say a bearing roll, basically it's being able to change the crank bearings, and mainly the crank bearings really, as if the engine was in the car, so without fully disassembling the engine. Yes, I know, it's on a stand, I could just take all the chains off, take the crank out, but I wanted to have a go at this, and I thought filming it might actually be quite interesting, because this doesn't appear very often. So if you can get the sump off an engine in a car, and you've got a knocking noise, you can change bearings with the engine in the car. Which, some cars, it's not very hard to take an engine out, but you need space, you need gear, all sorts of stuff to do that. So, being able to do it in a vehicle, I think is a useful skill. Thank you, camera lady slash pot holding lady. She's only holding it because the outside of it's clean. So, again, we've already gone over this in the other bit of the video. That's your old main bearing. So we've rolled that out. And now what we're going to do is jump to a different bearing where I filmed removing the upper half of the main cap a lot better than I do on this one. Now, I am having a little bit of trouble in filming this, so it might be a bit disjointed. So we're just going to go through the bearing roll again. There we go. So recap, bearing cap. We've taken the top one out. That's gone. And what we've done just there, using a plastic splodger, is remove the bottom bearing. And I am aware that I'm probably getting top and bottom a bit mixed up here, because we're upside down. So this is actually the top, isn't it, if you had the engine the right way up. Again, lovely crank, no damage. Just going to put a nice bit of lube on there. And a nice bit of lube on our new bearing. And then with it ready, I'm just going to turn us over until I find an oil feed hole. Oh, it's interesting. So the lower end of the crankshaft doesn't actually have an oil feed hole. Okay. That's odd. So I'll have to do the last one a little bit differently. But, hello, I just want to explain. So the best way to do it, inside the crankshaft, so the journal of the crankshaft, there'll be a little drilled hole. And what that hole does is feed oil up through there, into the bottom of the crank, through the journal, and that actually feeds oil, and that oil will sit between the crankshaft journal and the bearing surface. I don't really understand why that one doesn't have one, but there we are. I'm not a professional, as you may have guessed. When you do have that hole, get a cotter pin. It's nice soft metal, you won't damage anything. Push that into the oil hole, and then turn the crankshaft backwards. As you take it backwards, that face, which will be sitting proud of the crankshaft, will grab the bearing and push it round to where it should be. This one, I'll just sort of put some pressure on, similar to pulling them out really. I'm going to put some pressure on, turn the crankshaft backwards, and just pull that bearing back round. Right, so then we are just going I think the key with this process is mechanical sympathy, really. If it requires a lot of pressure, something's wrong. Because that's not even the weight of the tool on that. No, there we go. It's just line up that little notch in the bearing and the crankshaft, the machine face, which obviously holds the crankshaft and the bearing. But other than that, really, that is it. It's nice and simple. And again, yes, I know, I could have just taken out the crank, taken the chains off, taken the back plate off, and away we could have gone. But I've seen people do this process on quite a few cars, and to be honest, I found it quite interesting and I wanted to have a go. I also think it's quite a sort of rare thing to appear on YouTube, unless you watch people work on older stuff. And best way to learn is to do, isn't it? So if I can learn this skill now, am I right? In sort of an ideal scenario, it'll be a lot easier if I ever have to do it otherwise. Right, so we will just... Everyone has those things on when they try and video that they say a lot of. And I think mine is right, so... Right, so... And torque it up to 50 pounds-feet. Yes, I went over a little bit. And there we are. So that's the process. One extra, I think on a video, I did the crankshaft end float before we do this. Obviously you need to test it afterwards because journal number 6 has the thrust washers on it. So once you fit those, it should reduce. From what Dom at Powers said, is that there is a chance you may have to wet and dry this if it makes that clearance, that end float too small, which was 6 to 12 thou. There you go. Or 0.15 to 0.3 millimetre. So we are. Once you've done that, it's the same process as before. Basically replace the spanner with your dial gauge, move the crank back and forth and measure it. Weirdly with this, the newer ones gave me more end float than the old one, but I don't really know what I can do about that, so there we are. Well, I hope you've enjoyed all that bit. The bit I won't bother filming, I'll just seal the sump back on. Again, there's no gaskets, it's all just silicon sealant with Loctite 582 or 5820 now, whatever it might be called. I'm probably going to paint the timing cover. The timing cover and the cam cover is about the only bit of the engine you can see once it's in the car. Well, technically you can't see any of it because you have to unbolt the bonnet, but we'll do a lifty uppy bonnet conversion as well. So yeah, hope that's been helpful. Bye.